Have you ever wondered what makes a story really, truly stick with you? You know, that film you can't stop thinking about, or that book you just have to reread every year? Well, I'll tell you, it's not magic. The most powerful stories, they all share this kind of secret language, a hidden blueprint. And today, we're going to uncover that blueprint and get right into the timeless craft of storytelling.
So, just think about it for a second. An ancient Greek myth, a new blockbuster movie, even a funny story your friend told you. What could they possibly have in common? I mean, they seem like they're from totally different universes, right? But believe it or not, they are all built on the exact same foundation.
And that's the big secret. Every great story has an anatomy, a fundamental structure of parts that are all connected. You know, just like a body needs a skeleton and muscles and a heart to work, a story needs its own core components to really come alive. So in this explainer, we're going to be the surgeons, and we're going to dissect a story to see exactly what makes it tick.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to define that basic story anatomy. Then we'll get into the crucial stuff, the characters and setting, the plot and conflict, and of course the story's soul, the theme. And finally, we'll put it all back together and see how these pieces create a living, breathing narrative. Okay, let's start at the very beginning. We're about to look at the fundamental building blocks that make up pretty much every single narrative you've ever loved.
So what is a story really, when you get right down to it? It's a narrative account of how events change someone who is pursuing a goal. Now you really got to pay attention to those two words, change and goal. Without a character who wants something and who is transformed by the journey to get it, well, you don't really have a story. You just have a list of things that happen.
You know, to make all this a bit less abstract, let's use a running example. Let's imagine a character, a really talented musician, or maybe an artist, who is held back by this deep-seated fear. Okay? Just keep that person in mind as we build a story around them piece by piece.
So every story has to start somewhere. And that means we need our first two building blocks, the who and the where. It's simple, right? You need a person and you need a world for that person to exist in.
First up, characters. The protagonist is the hero we're all rooting for. In our case, that's our talented but fearful artist. The antagonist is whatever's standing in their way. Now that could be another person, or it could even be the character's own inner demons. Then we have the setting, the when and where. Let's give our character a world. How about a competitive, high-stakes music school? See? Instantly, the pressure is on and the stage is set.
Okay, so we've got a person and a place. Now we need something to happen. And that brings us to plot and conflict, the what happens and the big problem. This is the engine that really drives the whole story forward.
The plot is just the sequence of events, but it's not random. It's a really carefully structured chain of cause and effect. Think of it like the skeleton that gives the story its shape and moves it from the beginning through the middle and all the way to the end.
And that skeleton is usually built in 5 key stages. We start at the beginning, where we meet our fearful musician. Then you've got the rising action, which builds the tension. Maybe they have to prepare for a huge final performance. The climax is that peak moment, the performance itself, where everything is on the line. After that, we have the falling action, where we deal with the aftermath, which leads us to the resolution, where we finally see how this whole journey has changed them.
But what powers that plot? What makes it go? Conflict. This is the central struggle, the main problem the character has to face. And listen, this is so important. If there's no problem, there's no story. Conflict is the absolute heart of the plot.
Now, conflict usually comes in 2 main flavors. On one hand, you've got internal conflict. That's the battle happening inside a character's own mind. For our musician, this is their core struggle, that fear, that self-doubt. And then on the other hand, you have external conflict, a struggle against an outside force, like say a rival at the music school who's trying to sabotage them. And you know what? The best stories, they usually weave both of those together.
So, we have our character, our world, the things that happen, but why does any of it matter? To answer that, we need to uncover the story's soul, the theme. This is the big idea, what the story is really about underneath everything else.
Yeah, if the plot is the skeleton, then the theme is definitely the story's soul. It's that central message that gives meaning to all the action. It basically answers the question, so what? It's the big takeaway that sticks with you long after you finish the story.
Themes are those universal human truths a story explores. Big ideas, like overcoming adversity or the corrupting nature of power. So, for our musician, the one held back by fear, what do you think the theme is? It's not just a simple moral like fear is bad. No, it's a bigger idea. Something like true potential can only be unlocked when we confront our inner demons.
All right, so we've dissected the body. Now let's see how all of the parts actually work together.
The crucial thing to get here is that these elements aren't just some checklist. They all weave together, each one strengthening the others to create one single powerful experience.
So let's lay it all out for our example. Our character, the talented person, is in a setting, the competitive music school. Their conflict is that internal fear of failure. The plot is their whole journey leading up to that final performance. And all of it, every single part, serves the theme, overcoming self-doubt to achieve your potential. See how it all fits? None of these pieces can really work alone. They're all completely connected.
And this is not some modern invention. This story anatomy is absolutely timeless. You'll find it in ancient fables like The Lion and the Mouse, you'll find it in huge, sprawling novels, and you'll find it in the most complex, award-winning films. This structure is universal because, well, it's basically wired into how we as humans make sense of the world.
So there you have it, the anatomy of a story. The building blocks themselves are simple, but the possibilities, they're infinite. This is such a powerful toolkit, not just for creating your own stories, but for seeing all the stories around you with totally new eyes. So here's a final thought for you. The next time you watch your favorite movie, try to see past the surface. Look for the skeleton, look for the conflict, look for the theme, and ask yourself not just what makes it so great, but how the storyteller made those old bones sing.